Hello. Hey, Larry, how you doing?
Just finishing lunch.
Yeah, I was doing the same. Hey, June.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, dear. Hi, Betty. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Everybody have a good lunch?
Yeah.
Good. All right, let's see. All right, well, it's about time to get started. Let's see, where are we at right now? Oh, we've got 5 of us right now. Okay, well, I'm gonna get, you okay, Betty? Yep. Yeah, I think Betty fell off.
Fell off the chair.
My iPad fell down.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's get going here. I'm going to start looking at some of the pieces that people sent in, and we'll go from there. Hopefully, everybody can kind of. Let's go there. All right. Everybody see a drawing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah. I never know because it's like, I go to share, I click on a particular document, and then when it all comes up, it's like whatever was on top is on top, even though that's not what I selected. So anyway, so I'm going to scroll down here. We'll talk about this a little bit later. But I'm going to start with Larry, since he's here. All right. And this is a... Now, tell us a little bit about who this is, Larry.
Well, once before I named him Toby, a little cartoon character I've been working on.
Okay.
But my favorite one is that one at the top,
One at
that
the
drawing.
You mean,
Yeah, that one.
You mean that one right there?
Yeah, I like that one.
Okay.
But I think there's spots in it that you probably would say I need to darken.
I would. There are a couple actually.
Like that one arm that's up needs more darker underneath it.
Well, let me ask you this, okay? Where do you want the focal point in this?
Well, to me, when I look at the picture, my eye roams all over it. I mean, I catch your face first and I start down from there.
Okay. But what if there was a specific area that you wanted, to focus on?
I would probably say her face is probably the better part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you seem to have put more effort and work into, this upper area right here. And because of that, what I would say is if you're going to go in and reinforce some of those darks, I think the place that you probably really would want it is right here along between the jawline and the wrist or the hand, right? Here at the edge of the hair. And you're getting pretty close right in there. And then maybe just a little back in this area. And that would draw that whole upper part of the body out as being, the focal point. So, your eye will move back and forth, for that. Now, the one thing I would say is that as you're laying in these values and things like that, and particularly like here around the arms, it would be nice to see more of a change in value, as it moved around. And now this is in graphite, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And do you have anything that you could actually, like here on the cheekbone or forehead or on this part of the arm, put in as like even a lighter light than the white of the paper?
No, I don't have anything like that.
You don't. Okay.
That is a dark piece of paper, a little bit.
Okay. Well, I mean that if you had like a white like piece of pastel or chalk or a drawing pencil that was the white Conte, you could just add in just a little bit of light right in there. And again, you're keeping it up in this area. You're not going all over the body with it. That way you could really focus, your eye up to the head and give it a wider range of contrast.
Kind of like this morning's lesson when you were on that drawing demonstration.
Same idea.
You were using that. Was that a chalk? Was that chalk or
Well,
a pastel pencil?
well, part of it was chalk, and then later on it was a white piece of pastel. So
It would probably work on this picture.
yeah, it would.
Worked on it some more.
Yeah, but yeah, trying to get up, the contrast, and when you photograph these, maybe take them outdoors. It doesn't have to be like a brightly lit area, but like where there's a fair amount of light and it's even, and set them up vertically, and you got it pretty square, in the in the photo, but more even light would help, because it looked like you had a lamp on it which is lighting this area, and then it's kind of falling off into shadows. It's going, so that makes it harder to really see the change in value that you have there. Okay.
I did set it on my keyboard and leaned it up against my computer screen.
Yeah, I see that. But yeah, trying to shoot them in a better lit situation would be, better.
Have you seen this drawing before?
Yeah, you sent that to me last, I think, either the beginning of this week or last week. But
does anybody know where it came from?
Oh, no, I don't.
Come on, you guys saw Titanic, didn't you?
No, actually, I didn't.
One of the greatest pictures there was.
I see.
Oh yeah, that's the drawing and painting he did on their cabin.
Ah, okay, all right.
The guy from Steerage to the First Class Lady.
Okay. See, I didn't have that reference because I didn't see that movie. Actually, I tried to avoid that movie. But basically, this is kind of the same situation. Pick your focal point. Push your values a little bit more, and you can make it a more interesting, drawing. Again, try to shoot it in a better lit situation, because it seems like you were kind of in the dark when you did it.
So on her hips, I could probably chalk the hips a little bit to get it lighter.
Yeah, you could. Now the thing is, she's receding. Her hips are further away than her shoulders and her head.
Right.
And if you did that,
Sounds tasty.
it might actually pull that area forward, which is maybe not what you really want to do. If I were going to add the light, it'd be like here in the arm, the hair, maybe on the face or the hand, up in this area. Again, because you want to draw that further forward. And if you're pushing your darks in here and you're reinforcing that with some light, then you're going to get that contrast. And wherever the highest amount of contrast is going to come forward in the drawing. Okay?
I'll work on it some more and send it back to you.
Okay. All
I
right.
don't know who you are.
And then now, is this ink, watercolor?
That was watercolor.
Okay. All right. Yeah, but it's nicely done. And, we looked at this briefly, I think, to the end of last week or the beginning of this one. And again, you know, you did kind of a nice job. And I think what I had said to you was, you know, you need to come up here with, you know, either more dark and or, you know, pick a value and get it a little more unified because it's looking a little spotty right now. So it's like rather than all of these individual leaves, you know, maybe you pull some of these together, you know, into a shape, you know, rather than, you know, the individual leaves. Same thing here, rather than here, here, here. Again, you know, it's make, you know, simpler, bigger shapes in there. Okay. And then you've got this figure as well. And, you know, basically, you know, I mean, the drawing's working overall pretty well. Again, it's that contrast thing. You know, if this is going to be the focus, then, you know, push your contrast. Now your proportions here in the figure are a little bit off because you would think she's a woman, right? So as it moves down the body, you're going to get more weight in her hips than you are in her shoulders, and you've kind of done the opposite. And so just be careful with that.
It's a little tough when the body is actually turned a little bit instead of straight on. Because I kept looking at it thinking that the head is way too big for the body.
Well, yeah, as it moves up the body, yeah, the proportions, like the body to the head seems to be small. And so, you know, again, you know, it's add a little more weight down in those hips and things. You know, and if you increase that weight, then it evens it out, balances out a little bit better than it is right now, okay?
I'll try and give her some more hips.
Okay. You know, or try to redraw her and, you know, get the proportions right. You know, and don't touch this one. Maybe do a different version of it. Again, thinking about the proportions between the head, the hips, you know, the shoulders. Okay?
Will do.
All right. And then we have this lovely drawing. This is June, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so tell us a little bit about what you were doing.
Oh, I just sit my flower and tissue handle something in the desk. I just drawing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the flower stems, they were actually down in the water, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I want you to do something for me. Okay. And you know, you can't do it right now, but sometime over the next day or two, take if you have more flowers or whatever, put them in a glass, put them down in the glass and see whether those stems actually line up. Okay. My guess is they're not going to. Okay. And the reason being that, you know, going from, you know, air into the water begins to refract the light and it distorts things. And so very seldom do you see a stem that runs, you know, straight down into the water like that. Okay.
Okay.
So look at that really carefully. All right. And then if you did that, you know, if they didn't line up, if they offset a little bit, it would actually look like, oh, okay, yeah, they're actually going into water.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Because right now you've got the line here to indicate where the level of the water is, but your eye doesn't see that distortion. And it's something that we don't think a lot about, but if it's not there, then something doesn't quite look right about it. See? And so experiment with that. If you don't have flowers, take a brush or a pen or something, you know, put down in the water and take a look at it and see whether it actually aligns. You know,
Okay.
yeah, I think, like I said, I think you'll find probably doesn't do that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing I would say about this is, again, just like with Larry, you guys really have to start. First of all, you got to make a choice. Okay, it's like, what am I going to focus on? Because everything in this drawing cannot be equal, right? And so what you want to do is, where do you really want to focus? Is it the leaf back here in the back? Is it the flower? You know, is it this stuff back here? Is it the glass itself? All right, make those choices about where you want the focal point to be. And in that focal point area, that's really where you're going to have the widest range of value, okay, in contrast. And then from there, a little less, you know, a little less
Okay.
contrast. And see, that way the eye naturally sort of travels through the drawing,
Mhm.
you know, to that focal point and then kind of moves back through it again. All right.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, a good example of that, and we showed this morning, was this drawing.
Yeah.
And again, you know,
Yes.
you see where the contrast is, and Larry, this is for you too, since you sent this. See, his focus is really right here, because this is where the highest degree of contrast. He's got the lightest lights, the darkest darks, all in this area, and really kind of the highest degree of finish and detail. And then after that, everything else as it moves back, you know, backward, you know, on the body of the bird and into the background, gets softer, and there's less contrast and value, you know, down here than there is up here. Okay? So just because you see something and you're thinking in your mind that it's very dark or black, doesn't mean that as you draw it, you really have to draw it that way. You can make choices about where you want to put those darks and lights, where you want to have that contrast. So again, you can be more intentional about where you have the audience, you know, for that piece of artwork, you know, look and what they're going to see first and what's going to be more dominant, what's going to be more or less, you know, supporting information, but not as important. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Maria has a good term for that, you know. She's always after me, you know. It's like when I paint her in any way, it's like, you know, we'll make it, you know, where it's me, but it's not, you know. In other words, it's like soften things up. It's more of just be a suggestion that something is there rather than a lot of detail. So,
Can we say that to you?
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't get mad.
No. Anyway, yeah, I don't do everything perfectly, you know. Believe me, I don't. Now I wanted
Yeah,
to.
let's talk about this.
Huh?
Let's talk about this one.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about this one. Okay, because
Where's your light source?
well, it's this candle right here.
Oh, okay.
Right there. And so the, you know, the light is hitting the arm, the face here, and it's falling off, you know, as it moves back down the figure. That seems somewhat familiar of a conversation we've already had earlier today, Larry.
I think the feet should have been more in the dark than it is now.
Yeah. Okay.
That candle would not have projected that far.
You don't think so?
Not over those hips.
Okay.
Just kidding with you.
Yeah.
I'll mute myself.
No. It's okay. Well, opinions are good. But what I wanted to walk you through was, okay, to get to this, and this is not a finished drawing. You know, this is a thumbnail. And so what you're looking at is something that's probably about 5 or 6 inches wide by maybe 1.5 inches to 2 inches tall. So, you know, it's a small little drawing. And all of these are. This is actually part of the process that I'm doing on a video that I'm putting together right now, which really has to do with all 3 of these classes, but it kind of centers on the creative process and how, you know, a lot of people, when you get an idea or some kind of inspiration to go do something, you would probably be better off, rather than just jumping into that finished piece, by stepping back and taking a little bit of time and starting off going through this process that I'm getting ready to describe to you. Okay? And so, you know, anytime that I'm going to begin to do a painting, whether it's a commission piece, a portrait, or even, you know, just something that I'm kind of whimsically doing, you know, I try to break it down into, you know, particular steps, right, that will solve issues, you know, or particular issues at a certain time. So I start off with doing just little thumbnail sketches, right? And again, this is more of a penalized thumbnail. But really where I started off was, okay, yeah. I started off with that drawing, okay? And again, you know, this is a little 2 or 3 inch wide by, you know, 1 inch high, you know, little sketch. And it's done with a piece of Conte. And all I was looking for is I was just looking for how big is the figure within the format of, you know, the boundary of the picture plane or the paint or the canvas, right? And then where are the darks and where are the lights? You know, I didn't really want to break it into like a lot of different values. I just wanted to look at where's the darks, where's the lights, okay? And, you know, I looked at that and it was like, okay, yeah. And it was pretty close to the reference that I was working from. And so from there, I went to this, okay? Tried it again. And what I did is I pulled in closer on the figure. And, you know, the composition on that was pretty nice. You know, I like the movement, the angles, things like that. And that could make a nice painting, but, you know, when you begin to look at this and really think about it, it becomes almost more like a portrait. And that's not really what I wanted to do. I didn't really want to do a portrait of somebody. You know, so again, you know, it's like, okay, back to the drawing board. And went to this, okay? And so I pushed the whole thing back a little bit further, far enough back to begin to include that light source. You know, where was the light coming from? And see, then it begins to tell more of the story that I wanted to tell about sort of the mood of the piece, you know, what was actually happening in the room at the time, you know, and the general composition. And I liked the way that it broke up into these dark areas and light areas, you know, and again, you know, it began to give me something kind of to work with. So I moved on from there and I changed the format of the canvas. And rather than being kind of a horizontal elongated canvas, like what would this look like, you know, if it were in a square? And so again, you know, I did very similar things to what I had done in the previous drawing. But again, you know, it brought me back to that place where, okay, yeah, it's not as much of a portrait, but it still kind of feels like more of a format of a portrait. And not really where I wanted to go with it. So then I ended up, and that was my final little thumbnail. And what I did is, again, I changed the format of the canvas and I elongated it. Okay. So it's about a 2.5 by 1, you know, whatever it is tall, it's about 2.5 wide. And that seemed to, you know, kind of feel better to me. And I was just kind of thinking to myself, you know, when I did that, you know, I keep cutting her off here at the knees. Maybe I need to elongate that format even more and really get in the lower legs. And so when I went to trying to put in a wider range of value, that's how I ended up there. Okay. So you see, I've included the legs. I've got the couch. She seems far enough away, in the composition that, again, it's not really a portrait. It's about the mood of, that room and the light, and what she's doing, laying there, falling asleep, while reading. And so, my basic feeling was that's closer to where I really wanted to be. and that's where I've stopped in the video. So,
Hey, Charles?
yes.
Is it a good idea to take pictures of the progression as you do your changes, or make, like you showed us all the different steps you were working on? Is that something common to do, or are you encouraged to do as you're working on something and developing it?
You could, and I mean, that would be great. That would be a great help to you later on to go back and go, okay, so how did this progress? What did I do, at this step or this step? And, when I decided to make this change, compared between the two, was that the right direction to go in? And so that can be a really good learning opportunity for you to, every once in a while, from the beginning on through the stage of, finishing a piece of art, take a couple of photos of it along the way and see, how it changes. In this particular case, I'm not taking a photo of the same thing. These are all separate little drawings. They were all on the same page. And again, they're tiny. I mean, like I said, this is about maybe 5 or 6 inches wide, at the most. And, it's just a small little thumbnail drawing. It probably took me no more than about 10 minutes, to do this. And again, it's an idea. Now from this point, if I decide to move forward with this and I'm happy with the composition, things like that, the next stage that I'd move into is I could either do a larger, more finished drawing in value, and or I could go to the stage of, well, okay, I'm not going to get caught up in details right now. I'm going to move into doing what we call color studies. So I would take this and I would draw it out 5 or 6 times on a piece of watercolor paper. Again, very small. And then I would begin to work with watercolor or acrylic or, some kind of color medium and just play with color, keeping the color relating to the value that I have in these areas, like this very strong dark, So whatever color I make that, I'm going to make sure to make the value of that color as dark. I'm not going to be as dark here. And maybe I'll change the color. Maybe it will be a similar color. But again, I'll at least have a value change if I don't change the color from one area to another. Okay? And it just gives me an opportunity to go, as I said, go back in there and play with that a little bit, work with different ideas, see how different choices in color affects the mood that I'm trying to get with this, and which ones work toward making it feel the way I want or not. And again, it's an experimentation process. You're playing with it. And so if you go through this stage where you do this preliminary work, by the time that you get to the point where you're ready to do a final piece of art, then you have a pretty good, clear direction to move in. And you've already solved, issues of the composition. What's the format going to be? What are the proportions going to be, in the piece? How much of it is going to be the figure, how much is going to be couch and the rest of the room? And then what's the color going to be like? And, and you don't have to stay married to any of these. You don't have to copy it exactly. but it gives, again, you know, it gives you something to work with, you know, and you've already had the experience of kind of working through that process. So again, it gives you this pretty clear idea of where you're going to go with this. And what I find in doing that is you think that that would take a lot of extra time. But the fact is, doing things like that, working it out before you get into the final, in the long run actually saves you a lot of time, because you're not changing a lot of things in the process of doing the final piece. So, anybody got any questions about that, comments? Hello? Anybody there? Let's, everybody.
We're here, you heard my comments.
Okay, here, let's unmute everybody. All right, unmute.
Set me free.
Okay, you are. You're now set free. Some of you are. Avital's not. Oh, there she is. Okay, Elon's not. Okay, so comments? Anybody got anything to say?
Yes,
Our last 8 minutes and 3 seconds.
yes.
Already?
Yep, I know. It goes
How
by.
come we don't get a full hour?
Because this is Zoom on a free account. If you have a paid account, then you can talk as long as you want. Okay.
Yeah.
But since,
County's got lots of money.
yeah, but you see, the county had each instructor set up their own individual Zoom meetings, and they're not reimbursing us, you know, for this. So, you know, and we were told, no, just do the free account, you know, and it's like, yeah, I would actually like more time. It would be nice if we could stretch this out to, you know, at least an hour and a half. We could cover more ground. But then again, you know, we might run out of stuff to talk about too. So
This way you get to do 2 classes a day.
right. Yes. Well, and in essence, what I'm doing really is I'm doing one class. I'm just doing it in 2 sessions.
Correct.
Yeah, the morning I'm presenting ideas and material. In the afternoon, you know, I'm basically looking at the things that you guys are doing and critiquing them, and, you know, so that people can learn from everybody else, you know, in the group. And so that's why it's important for you guys to, you know, when you're doing something, you know, take a photo of it, send it to me so that we can share it, you know, on the appropriate day, whether that's in Monday, which is kind of the inspiration part, you know, Wednesday, which is, you know, more around painting, and then today more around drawing. Okay.
Okay. Can
So,
you hear me now?
pardon?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. I was finally able to unmute myself.
Oh, okay. Well, you're still muted according to what I'm seeing here.
Yeah,
Is this Jean?
it's John. I know it looks like I'm muted, but
Oh, is this Avatar?
yes.
Oh, okay. No, you're unmuted. Okay. It's Jean who's muted.
Well, and I keep unmuting it and it doesn't come, and the voice doesn't come up. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. 'Cause
Okay.
I
I
am.
was asking a question about that, the Reed's paper, the BFK,
Oh, Reed.
yes, paper.
Yeah.
Is it like a watercolor paper? Has weight and roughness or texture on it, or is it a smooth or semi-smooth paper?
I would say it doesn't have a lot of texture to it.
Okay.
It's kind of a flat, very smooth paper, but it's very soft. So it's really ideal for drawing, printmaking.
Not
like
paint,
that.
or not with the paint.
Yeah, I don't, you know, now I've used it to do like washes, like ink washes and stuff on it, it works really nicely. When it's wet, it will buckle a little bit.
Okay, that's
Okay.
what I was really wondering, if it had enough weight to it that it wouldn't do that.
Well, it's really quite heavy, but it's so soft and so absorbent. And I think if you took the time to wet it, stretch it, and then let it dry and then worked into it, you know,
Okay.
with watercolor, it would probably be just fine.
Because I just got some 300-pound watercolor paper as a gift, and
Okay.
that's what I'm going to start to try and use now, just to see how it affects the piece.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you know, in watercolor and even in drawing, you know, the paper is such an integral part of, you know, how the piece ends up looking in the end.
Right.
You know, if you have a really good piece of watercolor paper, you
Right.
can do magical things with it. If you have a very, you know, not so good piece of watercolor paper, one that sort of, you know, gets wet,
Buckles.
buckles or curls up, or after it gets wet, you know, and really saturated, the paper starts, you know, curling up on you, you know, and coming off. You know, then it can be a disaster. So, you know, and you know, it's kind of the same thing if you're painting like in acrylic or oil as well. You know, you have to kind of figure out what kind of surfaces you work well on. You know, do you want a canvas that's springy and gives you, you know, a lot of flexibility when you press down on the brush, or do you need a harder surface, you know, so that, you know, the brush really responds to the pressure that you're putting on it? And, you know, everybody's a little bit different, and you just have to kind of experiment around and see what works for you. But
Yeah, if you get a springy canvas, you can put your hand on it, and so that you can put more pressure on the brush. On the canvas, you can, you know, make it to affect certain brush strokes and places on the canvas that you need a little harder surface.
yeah, well, you could,
I've experimented a little bit, but not much.
yeah, you can, but then if the front side of the canvas is wet, then you get your fingers in wet paint and
Right.
fingerprints in it.
Unless you're in acrylic and it dries fast,
No, right. Yeah. If you
which I am.
yeah, if you're using gouache or acrylic, or, you know, even tempera paint that dries very quickly,
Right.
then you don't have to worry about it as much. But, you know, as an oil painter, you know, somehow holding down the canvas,
And that doesn't work.
yeah. But if you don't like a springy canvas, you know, one of the things you can do is you can take a piece of matte board or something and cut it just a little bit smaller than the canvas
Right.
itself, and then slide it back up under the stretcher bars again to give you that harder surface to paint on.
Right.
And you can, after the painting is finished, you can either leave it there, you know, or you can take it out.
Right.
Either way.
Since we're talking about painting, Charles, what would be the best weight for watercolor paper?
Well, you know, a lot of people like working on the 300-pound because it's, you know, it's really kind of thick and heavy. But for me, anytime I'm working in water media, I really like this Strathmore double weight illustration board or watercolor board, because it is very rigid, and, you know, I can sit and I can put layer after layer of watercolor on it, get it as wet as I want, and it never buckles or anything. And it's the surface is 100% rag. Again, so it's archival, and again, you can work it to death and just keep, you know, going back in on it, and it's always gonna hold up.
How big are those are those boards?
Oh, you can get it like 60 inches by about